Like the first time, one of my first comedies, my father and I used to go watch the Pink Panther movies with Peter Sellers. And I thought, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
I felt a sort of a connection with part of my heart that I never felt before.
Interesting.
He was just the physical comedy that he possessed was incredible.
Yeah.
And he just made me laugh. And I thought, I want to make other people feel like the way I'm feeling now.
Right.
The door opens and there's Phil Robinson, the director. And then right behind him was Robin Williams. And I thought, oh. And next thing you know, we just sort of go into this 45-minute improvisation. Just from the beginning. Yeah, and it was just sort of unforced. It was seamless, like this dance. We did characters from all over the world. And they stood up and offered me the job on the spot. And that never happened to me before.
Hey, this is Chaz, and welcome to my world from my living room. Today, we're going to talk to Daniel Raymont. We're going to talk about our chance encounter in Mexico City, his multifaceted acting career, his unforgettable experience with the late, great Robin Williams, and much more. So, sit back, relax, and welcome to my world from my living room.
So, we are in my living room, and I say we because I'm sitting here with the incomparable Daniel Raymont. Yes, he is here, and it's amazing how this happened. This couldn't have been scripted if I tried.
It had to be.
Oh my God. Had to. I love it. So we met in Mexico City. Go figure that. That is one of my favorite places in the world. And we're going to talk a lot more about Mexico City later, but we want to dig into who you are and what you bring to the world with your gift of acting, which I find to be difficult, but also fun. But I must say, I feel like you take it to another level. I want to dig more into that because your character interpretations, I feel are just, I've never seen the range, literally. I've never seen the range that you have. And it's impressive to a degree of like, now I gotta go and spend 1 million hours on watching this man's stuff from commercials. Well, thank you for sharing a lot of that stuff on your social media. So that definitely helps abbreviate some of that. But we got to dig a little bit deeper because social media only gives you snapshots. But dude, Daniel, talk to us about like where you're from and like how you got started in this business and what created the monster that you are right now.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me
Absolutely.
On your wonderful couch.
Thanks.
I'm from New York.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, people ask me, where are you from? And I have to think. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes it's like a deep question, where am I from? I was physically born in New York, moved to Mexico when I was 5. A lot of my earliest childhood memories are in Mexico. Just spending time in the outdoors. I think about how my brother and I grew up versus how our kids are growing up.
Yes.
Just outside, using our imagination. Dad life, but also my biggest fear as a kid when I was traveling was, well, what happens if the batteries of my Walkman run out? What am I going to do without music? I have to think.
Right.
And you would just sit there, and it happened.
Right.
And it would be like, gosh. My thoughts. When your thoughts are like being alone with your thoughts is scary. It's like, wow. Now we have the capacity to never be bored, which I think sometimes is unfortunate because it's in the boredom where sometimes you have an idea.
Right. No, true. I mean, talk about the boredom aspect of things. I'm like, we still find ways to get bored.
Yeah.
Because we can get overstimulated too. It's almost like it's almost like a sugar pill.
Yeah.
Like, we start off with something that we feel like it's effective, and then over time when we get too much of it, it becomes ineffective.
Right.
So, but I think it's about finding that balance, right? And part of what I like to talk about is just like that balance between, creativity and, different places that we dwell as creatives. And then also, if you happen to be a parent, that's also a great thing, which you are. So that definitely is one of those things I want to talk about a little bit as well. But I want to talk about where your inspiration is for a lot of these different characters. I know you've traveled a lot, right? Now, has your travels or your upbringing, because there's a nature nurture sort of thing.
Sure.
What has created, like I said, that monster in you that makes you want to be a million people? Like literally a million people.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from?
Well, I think, I was afraid of my own voice. I think I was afraid I wasn't interesting enough as I was. And it started, I remember when I was younger, trying to impress girls.
It all starts there.
It always does. We always do it for love.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking I would speak, with my own voice. And I remember most of the time, these girls wouldn't even give me the time of day. But if I started talking like this, all of a sudden I'd be, oh my God, where are you from?
Right.
And that's what I wanted. I was like, where are you? I wanted that other.
Yeah.
And I think when you're a kid, sometimes trying to find your identity, you want to be anywhere where other than where you are.
Right.
Or you want to be anybody else but who you are. And I sort of, you get to a certain age, you start to reflect. And one of the things I would have liked someone to tell me when I was a kid is learn to love yourself.
Right.
That your love is enough, because that's the building blocks for everything in life.
Absolutely.
In terms of relationships with other people.
Sure.
If you are as comfortable as you can be with who you are, we're never going to be 100% comfortable necessarily, but if you learn to love yourself, then that foundation, you can create healthy relationships on top of that.
Yes.
So, as a kid, I wanted to be anybody but myself. And I started to watch, like the first time, one of my first comedies, my father and I used to go watch the Pink Panther movies with Peter Sellers.
Right.
And I thought, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
I felt a sort of a connection with part of my heart that I never felt before.
Interesting.
And I thought, he was just the physical comedy that he possessed was incredible.
Yeah.
And he just made me laugh. And I thought, I want to make other people feel like the way I'm feeling now.
Right.
As a 5-year-old kid in the movie theaters. Just nothing else mattered. That's the beauty of art, is all of a sudden it takes you, it transports you to an entirely different world.
I believe that's like the plight for a lot of kids. There's a sense of looking to get that parental approval. And also, not only that, but I think growing into ourselves to where we want, when I say their approval, it's like my mom, for example, was like, you got to get a real job, that creative thing, that acting thing, that singing thing,
He's worried about how you're
thing,
gonna make a living.
worried about how you're going to make a living.
Course.
So there's that part of it, but then there's also that tug of war with your independence. Because, they've given you the tools to be who you are, but now it's up to you to take that baton and take that to the next place in your life, right? But you taking that all over the world in various arenas, like, is there any particular place you've been that's really kind of inspired, like, you know what? Oh, I think I want to try this sort of lifestyle or mentality or intonation or accent in a piece?
Well, Mexico, because I spent age 5 to 8 there. Mexico feels like home. Like when I go to Mexico, I feel like I understand everything. Everything makes sense. I have a different point of view when I'm there. Yeah. England, because my father went to a British school in Argentina when he was a kid. And so England, the Brits have figured heavily in my life. It began with tea, because my father was always, screaming at us, this is how you make a fucking I'd say proper. You have to pour boiling water in the pot. Boiling hot water in the pot. You let it warm while the water is boiling. You have to boil it. You don't microwave water, for fuck's sake. And then you pour the tea leaves, not a tea bag, 3 teaspoons of tea leaves, and then 1 for the pot for good luck. And so what that does is it absorbs the aroma of the tea. But I was always fascinated. It was principally music that drew me because I loved the rock music, the pop music.
Yeah.
In the 70s, punk music for me, my favorite punk was British because it was all this sort of frustration and anger against Margaret Thatcher. And it was a very genuine, impassioned expression of you.
Right.
That I felt, as a kid sometimes with that frustration, the feeling of anti-establishment. Here was this art form expressing it. I thought that's how I feel. And it feels like we go through life, whether it's a book or a painting or a song or a movie, and it goes, that's exactly how I feel. And we start to gravitate towards that's how I feel. And then we start to form our identities, form our own identities.
Interesting.
And so for me, music was I learned about love. The first time I fell in love, it may have been an ABBA song. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that. But
we're about to say that.
The first time I fell in love, it was a love song, and I didn't know who she was, but I knew I was in love with her.
Interesting.
And then again, this sort of much like the feeling when I was watching Peter Sellers, I felt this energy in my heart, and at first I was like, what do I do with this? Let's just go with it,
Right.
So then I fell in love. I didn't know what her name was. And then, I don't know, months later, years later, the first song of Heartbreak, and I was gutted.
Oh.
I was gutted. She broke my heart, but I didn't know who she was.
Right.
But so that's how the power of art to be able to affect us, to change us, to make us feel.
Right, to make us feel. Especially when it comes to me being a singer. That's my, one of my areas of where my career dwells. As you see back there, I've got my studio. So I do a range of voices and I sing, and that's my career here. During the pandemic, you talk about, having that self-reflection and really being in your own space. Music for me was kind of like my thing. I had to escape. I had to also make a living. Because, a lot of the voiceovers, the voiceovers and stuff, voiceovers, singing jingles and stuff, talk about doing different voices. I can definitely identify with you in that regards, but it's more from the singing space for me. I can sound as white as I need to be. I can sound as old, black, and soulful as I need to be. I can sound all these different things, but it's more from a singing space. So, talking to you and seeing your sizzle reel, which I'll definitely be posting in the notes of this show. So you can see this range, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah,
that guy.
I remember that guy. Yeah, and it's just amazing. So I definitely understand from a career standpoint, and also from a creative standpoint. And going back to the pandemic, that was a thing where, fortunately, I had invested early in buying my studio because that allowed me to work on the fly whenever. So my manager calls me, Chaz, are you around for a session? I'm like, yes. Like 99.9% of the time, I'm available.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm at home already, or I happen to be, in the city, which is like 40 minutes. If I'm not home, I'll be home. So you can't out availability me. So whenever it's time to to work, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna give you as best work I can. It's gonna be available. I can be dependable. And that's what kept me in my particular game. Now for you, it's a little bit different. You're just coming from, an actor's strike, as it relates to your industry, which is one of those things where, the pandemic held your average person, on lockdown for a couple of years, right? You as an actor, you were essentially, you had your own personal and creative and professional lockdown. How did that work for you, and where were you in that space?
Well, it's, the strike was hard on a lot of people, I think, but people, actors are the faces of projects, but I think people forget, if you stay to watch the credits at the end of a movie, you see there are hundreds of names.
It really is.
Of catering, makeup, camera, sound, visuals, the editing, producers, casting, all of that. There's so many people involved in a project. And it was hard. I tried to use the time, to meditate, to learn about myself, I think a lot of people with the pandemic, I remember when the pandemic started, I thought if I'm the same person coming out of this as I am going into it, I will feel like I wasted an opportunity.
Yeah.
Here in the US, the whole world, was like the first time the world had a shared experience, you know?
Yes.
It's like World Cup is something that brings everyone together and
Right.
it's light.
Yeah.
You know? Here was this fear of the unknown. And then you mix in the sort of political, nefarious experience that we had here of not believing that anybody knew what the fuck. I mean, if people cannot know what the fuck is going on, but at least they have to try.
Right.
They have to try to show that they actually care or give a shit about us.
Right.
And I think we, you know, because we really need to sort of dive into this to understand where we are. What living in fear, they compared it to post-traumatic stress every fucking day.
Yeah.
It was the first time in my life I had a hard time getting out of bed. And I thought during the pandemic, I just want nighttime to come. I was literally waking up and I thought, can it be nighttime?
Wow.
So I don't have to think about what's happening. I just want to go back to sleep. I just felt like if I could sleep through all of it.
Right.
So, but the strike was hard because I think as artists, and I think you can relate to this, we feel that we exist to a degree to create.
Yes.
Other people are evaluating us by what we're contributing. But more importantly, we evaluate ourselves.
Absolutely.
You know? And so if we're not creating, to a certain extent, we don't exist.
Yeah.
So we are fathers, we are humans. Well, you are. I don't know.
You're an alien, for sure.
I kind of still waiting for the DNA results. But we need to create.
Yeah.
You know? It's like we need to be doing something. And even if it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be something that is homemade. And that's the great thing about the pandemic is that we started to create homemade things and we realized this is as good as anything else.
Right.
You don't need to spend thousands of dollars and millions of dollars to put on some fancy. Homemade is good. Homemade is fresh. Homemade is you. It's me. You know, it's like it's an honest expression because you said something about the projects that you do, singing, the voiceovers, and I think the interesting thing about what we do is when you're starting out, you're always trying to give them what they want.
Right.
So that's where we don't really know who we are when we're first starting out because when you're always trying to give them what they want, you don't know exactly what that is.
Right.
But the more experience you have, the more it's like, I'm going to show them what I have to offer.
Right.
Because that's what makes us different.
Right.
Our own experiences, you know, our own artistic point of view.
Yeah.
That's what we can offer that nobody else can offer because no one else has our life experience.
And also perspective.
Exactly.
For sure. During the pandemic, were you in Mexico City? Where were you? New York?
During the pandemic, I was in New York, and I sort of I started to think, what do I want? How am I going to stay sane? And I thought about the Italian character Beppe that I created, and what I love about the Italian people that I know is that they are so full of love and lightness, and I feel so happy when I'm around them. And sometimes they can be insulting your mama, but they do it in such a beautiful way that you are not, please insult my mama, you are the best.
Yeah.
So Beppe is a character I created originally who was going to do music reviews. Just because I love music.
Oh, yeah.
So I started to do music reviews. I did a David Bowie birthday tribute as Beppe.
Wow.
Saying, Beppe, Davide, you are the one who teach me the English. You are the one who teach me how to wear the women clothes. You teach me how to love. And there was sort of a lightness to Beppe that I thought, okay, I need to ride this Beppe wave to get through this because it was hard.
Yeah.
Your people dying every day. It was really, really hard. So I thought, let's go for the comedy. Let's go for the lightness.
Sure.
So I was the only one in my household to go shopping, to leave the house. So I would sit in the car, and at one point, just thinking as Beppe, I thought, what I do with the car? The car, nobody on the street. Why we don't have a disco party? We're going to have a dance party in the car. And I thought, what an absurd idea to have a dance party in the car, because first of all, you're not really dancing. You're just moving your
your
head.
elbows.
So I took remember iPods? I took my iPod and I just started playing random music, and Beppe was dancing and commenting along and I thought, how can I help my friends?
Yeah.
How can I help to distract them, even if it's only for 30 seconds?
Right.
So I was just commenting on the songs and just telling people, don't give up, we have to be together. Just silly things and improvising.
Yeah.
And I would do it for like an hour. And you know, when you're recording things, you're going to use maybe 30 seconds of it.
Right.
But I started to edit, and I thought, okay, gotta
So
make this flow.
wait. So where is this? Is it like TikTok? Where's this?
No, this was just.
Because I miss those
There
little...
was something called Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Facebook. I put onto the Facebook, really just for my friends and the family members. And I started to realize that friends of mine were really, there were friends who kept asking me, where's Beppe? Please do another one. The dance party in the car. Then Beppe, I had a great experience going to Trader Joe's. The people who work there, just this beautiful, fun attitude, and the music is all 80s and 70s and 80s. And I loved it. I just feel, at home. But they were so positive. And it was, so I would do Beppe goes to the Trader Joe's, what Beppe is finding in the Trader Joe. And it was just commenting, because I watched so many people on social media who are just, having a cup of coffee. That's an experience of their day. So I thought, why not Beppe is going to share what he's doing, what he's not doing. Some of it got political, and I thought, sometimes when you get political, you start to pit people against each other. And it's more like, how do we bring people together?
Right.
Music, food, art. Once you start talking about religion, politics, just leave
right,
that somewhere else. But it was fun. And what I realized also is sometimes we want to share with everyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, but I think if you can impact a few people and really, really contribute something positive, that's enough. That's plenty.
Yeah. So now you said a word. There's a few words in there for sure. And I think that's what our creativity and that's what our art is for, is to help lift people. I do commercials and jingles to make people sing along and buy products, right? Yeah. I have a voiceover to be commanding, to be, to bring home a point or to drive home a point of a commercial. So I definitely understand that from what our creative outlets, do for people, for sure. Now, I'm chomping at the bit to this next part because I want to talk about Mexico City. Okay, so Mexico City, we're getting off the pandemic. The pandemic is done, but it's not done. It's a place where a lot of my friends here from New York, they're taking refuge. There's this huge boom. So I'm online and everybody's talking about Mexico City. Oh, I'm in Mexico City. I'm seeing all this content and no, Mexico City. I'm like, Mexico City? Like, I've been to Mexico, but what is Mexico City? And oh my God, this place is magical. I didn't know when I would go there, but I knew I wanted to go at some point in my life because I'd heard about it. And a lot of friends that I knew that I really respected and that have been friends of mine are like, they've either moved there or, they visit often.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, what's going on in Mexico City? So the first time I went, so I told my wife about it. I'm like, babe, I really got to go to this Mexico City. I got to see what it's all about. So we went the week, let's see, 2022? Yeah, 2022, February. We went for the week of Valentine's Day. She loves the beach, so we had to abbreviate the trip because I really wanted a full 7 days. She was like, I got to go to the beach. Acapulco, rest in peace. That's, But so we had divided our time, right? So we went for 3 days to Mexico City, enough to get dry humped.
Right.
And then we took a quick.
I remember dry humping.
I remember dry humping. So then we hopped a quick flight to Acapulco to have some beach time, for the wife. And drink Mai Tais by the beach and, wake up to go to the beach and eat at night and dance and have all the fun. That was really cool. So, and then I went a second time with a good friend of mine that had never been before. So I'm like, oh my God, you gotta go to Mexico City. It's the next place. And me and my wife went there and it was, oh my God, it's like, oh my gosh. And my friend gave me this, these pretty much the cliff notes and like the study of the whole place and kind of equated it to like different boroughs and neighborhoods in the city. Like they're like, oh, what's the name of the place? Oh my gosh. like Polanco is like, Beverly Hills, and you got, Juarez is like Williamsburg, and you got these places. So it's all
broke
these.
it down for you.
They broke it down, man.
Nice.
They broke it down, and then all the different eateries and places to go. Roma Norte. I don't know how you say it. Is that how you say it? That place, the restaurants are magical. The
restaurants in general in Mexico,
Yeah.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a city that has better food.
Oh my God. And now to segue a little bit, I want to, the second trip, that's, kind of where this evolved to, me and my friend, we went out to all the different places. We went out to different hot spots. We did Soho House. We did, a lot of the stuff that we went to a couple of concerts. I mean, there was just a lot of things we did. And so we went to one of the places and where I met you, which was where?
Parnitas.
Yes,
Yeah.
Parnitas. So we heard that they had the best tacos, the ambiance is cool,
Yeah.
scene to be seen.
It's a scene.
Scene to be
sure,
seen, and, C and B scene. And I was like, oh, we got to go there before we go. And this was it wasn't the night before we left, it was 2 nights before we left. And I ran.
Saturday, I think, right?
Was it Saturday?
Yeah, it was a Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, because it was right around the time of Dia de
los Muertos.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
And we're like, we gotta go. And so they tried to snow job us, right? So we went there, it's like, oh yeah, it's an hour wait. I'm like, 15 minutes later, your seat's ready over there. I'm like, come on, man. So when we arrived.
Well, time is relative in Mexico, so.
True.
1 hour is not necessarily an hour. It could be 5.
Right.
Or it could be 10 minutes. So.
Right. So what's interesting is that, so we get in there and I see you and I'm like, this is refreshing to see someone like yourself because you look American. You look like you spoke English very well. And so I'm like, okay, I had my eye on you from the standpoint of like, okay, here's a cool dude. You had some cool boots on. You had a cool hat on. Your hair was back. It was like a vibe. I'm like, okay, this guy's, artist to some degree, this, that, and the third. You were there and then you went inside. I'm like, I'm sitting here told that I'll be here in an hour. This dude done jumped 2 seats.
This guy
is like everywhere.
Who the hell does he think he is? Mr. Cowboy Man coming in here.
So I see you, and then there was a lady who had joined you. So I'm like, oh, okay, he was probably waiting for his table, and I see you both collectively, and then I walk up to you and introduce
it's
myself.
Great. But that's what I love about Mexico is that it's not to say that you and I wouldn't have met here. But there's an openness about Mexico. There's sort of this curious spirit.
Yeah.
That you can meet anyone.
Yeah.
And I think here, it's partly maybe if you live and work here, then maybe sort of we got our sort of guard up, you know? And so we're sort of also inward.
Yeah.
Whereas in Mexico, you're sort of exploring and you're open. And there's a term, one of the things I love most about Mexico is the apapacho, which is a Nahuatl term for embrace. And it's not just sort of this homophobic American hug where people are like, hey, man, hey, buddy, great to see ya. But when you hug someone, you hug them deeply and tightly. And what it literally means is the embracing of souls. And I love that.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who, when I first moved to Mexico in 2021, she would hug me.
Yeah.
And she would just keep holding me. And at first, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Then she goes, hug me properly.
Right.
So I thought, oh, okay. Let's. And part of what I learned living in Mexico is just let loose, let go. And just be and just sort of.
And, I mean, that's exactly the way I felt. And, what's interesting, the way we met, me and my friend were there, we're waiting on our food, and I see you both, and both y'all had a vibe. Maria Jose.
Yeah.
Maria Jose.
Yeah.
She's an angel.
Yeah.
So I walk up to your table, I'm like, man, you both look like a whole vibe. Like
she's got a very
cool,
punk rock.
Yeah, punk rock, almost like a Blondie vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I would say Blondie meets Laurie Anderson.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But y'all's style was infectious, and I'm like, oh my God, like cool style, because there's a lot of great shops there.
You guys,
people,
no. You guys had that kind of cool dudes look over there. I was like, who are these cool dudes?
Yeah. So I go over to your table and I'm like, you guys have a great vibe. I just wanted to come say hello. I didn't know if you spoke English or not, so I was kind of, treading lightly, but then you spoke English, so I'm like, oh my God, speak English because my tongue was broken by the time I got finished leaving.
I should have said, what? Slowly, please. English, learning.
No, your vibe was too, it was too New York, right? You had the New York vibes. And so I was like, no, these guys are great. And so you guys were very welcoming and you really kind of admitted that.
Oh, you guys sat down at our table. I mean, it's not that
well, you
doesn't,
invited us.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is it's not that doesn't happen in New York, but there's this very familial feel, welcoming feel, where it's just, I just feel like, they're like the borders, that we put up, or just let them go, and just because endless possibilities.
Yeah. And, I feel like that was a moment where I didn't know where the night would take us. We were just going to eat. And then, I think the whole time there were a couple of white rabbits we were chasing, right? And one of them was Hanky Panky.
Right, I've heard of it.
So Hanky Panky is like a speakeasy, and then there was another place, I think it was Handshake. I think Handshake was the one I think we were really trying to get into. Bottom line was we had one day left and we didn't know what we were doing. And we wanted to go somewhere that was a little bit more remote. And Maria Jose, she was like, hey, why don't you come out to
Tepoztlan.
Tepoztlan. And man, that was amazing. And what's crazy, I felt like my disposition was a little off. So I made myself come over to your table because I had been battling like the altitude sickness. It was real. I've never been affected that way.
How long had you been there?
Well, we were there a total 9 days. So probably at that point was our 7th day. And
it takes a while.
Every night I had a headache and I'm like, what is this?
No,
I've never experienced it in my life. So all that to say, Maria Jose, she was so sweet. And she was like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, but I'll take you out there. I'm like, who does that? It was the sweetest thing. And so she took us out there to this beautiful, like not a day spa. It wasn't much more elevated than that. But it was this beautiful area that just overlooked this beautiful space of like mountains and trees and stuff. And it just felt like heaven. Like I literally extended my arms out and just was like, yes, this is it. This is it. And it was such a serene, because, for all the traversing we were doing through the city,
it was contrast to where.
Very much of a contrast.
I lived there when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I lived in Tepoztlan.
Wow. Yeah.
It's not changed much, the cobblestones, and it's.
Oh, no, not at all. Those streets were rough.
Yeah, you gotta have the right, you cannot wear that there. You may not wear those. You can, but, and I wouldn't wear these either. No, but it's a beautiful place where where you can just go and meditate. And
that place was magical. It was definitely a highlight, and I'm so glad I did it last because it felt like it almost cleansed the rest of the trip.
I love that.
Yeah, because like I said, we're in the city, we're trying to look, we're looking cool, and we're going to clubs and we're having drinks, and we're going into speakeasies, and we're meeting cool people, and it was just like, that was the one that was just like, okay, I'm just throwing a fisherman's hat.
And how amazing is you had no idea what the evening had in store for you.
Had no idea.
But that could be life in general. If you're just sort of open to anything, but especially in Mexico, you sort of learn the art of improvisation.
Yeah.
And you can make your plans, but keep them loose. Keep them loose so we don't sort of like keep our.
And I think that really speaks to my Sagittariusness because I hate planning.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm doing next week.
Yeah.
5-year plan? What is that? Like, I don't speak in those terms. And a lot of people think I'm crazy for that. But then they see my life. They're like, well, it's working for you. So I don't get it because that shouldn't work. But when you're created that way and you've learned those ways about yourself, it's not foreign to you. It's just foreign to new people who come into your life.
It's great that you know that about yourself too, because I think so many people end up trying to force themselves into a certain mold. But if this is who I am, this is what I'm capable of, this is how I flow, then you sort of nurture yourself along the path of life with that.
I have a Virgo wife, so she's a planner. She has to make sure that everything is a certain way. But I think that's where we kind of balance each other, right? Because because she sees my superpower as the way that I am, and I see her superpower the way she is. You know, she goes, "Oh man, I wouldn't be able to do that," but it works.
That's awesome.
Fabulously
How
for
great
you.
that you guys
And
see
like,
that in each other.
Yeah, because you know, when I'm out, I'm a peacock. You know, I rarely leave this house. I mean, because this is where home is.
Yeah.
And when I go to the city, it's to give energy. Here, I'm restored. You know, so I'm about 40 minutes away from Manhattan. So I enjoy being away.
Unless
but
it's the weekend, though.
Yeah.
You have to take the subway. It's New York.
My wife, dude, don't. My wife, she will tell you like, oh man, that queue ain't running on the weekend. Sometimes you got to do a shuttle.
Brooklyn, especially. Brooklyn is like, it feels like Brooklyn gets the
short
weekend
end of the
shaft. No, it's like, I mean,
yeah, we don't feel like going to the city this weekend.
I lived in Carroll Gardens and Park Slope, and I remember.
Oh, that's the F, right?
Yeah, the F
for
or
the
the
G.
G. It's like, what
G.
the hell? How is it the most self-important city in the world has a third world transportation sometimes? It's like, for what we pay for the subway.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to take this moment to thank each and every one of you all for joining me right here in my living room. I know it's a different format than your typical podcast, but this is something that felt really natural and organic for me to be able to share my most authentic self with you. The people who I've invited to my home are people that allow me to think a little bit differently, and they also inspire me. And I hope they do for you as well. So if you would, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment and a question. Till then, let's continue this conversation.
We're both dads, which, you know, has its own set of challenges themselves. So you have a 16-year-old.
I do.
Yeah,
I do. And
we have multicultural
Yes.
families as well. My
Yes.
son is half Georgian. Yours is half Japanese.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a work in progress.
I know.
Especially, I think for me having a girl, I love it. I knew I wanted to bring a girl into the world.
Yeah.
I've seen what we boys and men can do.
Yeah.
I think more of the feminine energy. But it's a different language.
Yeah.
It's a different language. I feel like, you know, I've needed some translation. And I felt like, you know, all I knew as a father is I didn't want to be my father. That's not much of a plan.
You know?
It's not. It's like if we're creating characters, yes, you can start out by saying, well, he's not this, but eventually you're going to have to arrive at a place where you're like, it is this.
Right.
And so, yeah, I felt like I had to be dictating. I felt like what she needed was my advice.
Yeah.
And what I'm learning, and you know, I've learned so much from talking to my female friends who give the perspective as a daughter, but also as a mother.
Yeah.
Because they help to translate what my daughter is
Decoding.
sharing. Yeah, exactly. And what I keep hearing is she wants to be heard.
Yeah.
Just listen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think us as dads, I believe we have this role that we feel like we need to fill, you know, and I bet there's, you know, some sort of correlation with your acting where, you know, that escapism for you, you know, but this, you really got to face it.
Can't escape.
This is real. You got to you got to be dad. But I think we can be over dadding, you know.
I definitely was. Like I remember speaking of the subway, we took the train a lot, and I was, and maybe I still am, a helicopter father. I would get on the train and I would look at everyone and I'd try to anticipate any possible move.
Wow.
To preempt it.
Wow.
Because I study people when I'm on the train as an actor too. I try to figure out their story.
Yeah.
So having a kid heightened that experience.
Right.
I wanted to prevent any potential situation from happening.
So no, that's amazing. With the acting parallel, you're saying, you know, you were in a train, you're kind of studying actors and stuff, and you kind of, you know, not actors, but people around
New
you.
Yorkers are actors.
Right, yeah, absolutely. But, you know, taking that, you know, to pair that with being a parent, I bet you were the coolest voiceover artist for a lot of the books you read your daughter As a kid, like, how did that go? How did that work?
Well, it didn't. It didn't.
What?
She'd be like, real normal voice. Because I'm like, this is what I do. I'm not charging you for this. I should. Matter of fact, I'm going to send you an invoice down the line with interest. But it didn't occur to me that, she has, kids have a very sort of concrete impression of who their parents are.
Right.
So if I start switching those accents, maybe that could be. Some people might call it schizophrenia. But it never. Some people might diagnose such a condition as multiple personality disorder. But it never occurred to me that my daughter would be like, "What the,
Yeah, like, Dad, is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. But my son, it's interesting how, these parts of our careers and creativity, how much of that spills over, because maybe one day she'll be a reluctant actor because she's like, her dad was successful at it.
Yeah.
Although he wasn't the ideal straight-laced, dad, there's something that he did that was successful, and so we only hope, right? Because for me, I have Gio, which, he's been singing since birth.
Wow.
He's got that ear. I mean, it's perfect. Like, he hears a melody once, he can do all the intricate notes and riffs and placements in his voice and everything. And I'm just like, he's got the thing, right?
It makes you proud, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I can remember one time I had him on a session. So I was coming off of one of my weekends. It was crazy. I'm screaming, getting all these, Russian jewels to be able to be motivated to party and have a good time. And so my voice was пиздец, очень плохо, very bad.
Yes.
And so the next day,
but very sexy sounding recipe. Recipe.
Yeah, so Monday comes, my manager calls me, Chaz, are you available for a session? I'm like, oh God, my voice is just in the basement and I'm having to sing falsetto and all these different things. A choir, so I had to sing like all four parts, right?
Testicles as you were singing.
Right. So I'm having to sing all these voices and I had to sing a high voice. And I'm like, I ain't got it today. I said, buddy, Gio, do you mind coming and singing this part for me?
Nice.
He sang the part for me.
Right.
And the producer I said, because I've known him for years, the guy I was working with. I said, man, I had to call an audible today. My voice is trash. And I had to get my son to sing on the high parts, right? And he was like, oh my God, that's your son? That sounds amazing. Wow. It sounds amazing. Because I had to produce his vocal because I didn't want him to sound like a kid. I needed him to sound like a female. So
you recorded it here?
Yeah,
oh,
absolutely. Nice. Everything is recorded here.
Wow.
Yeah, during the pandemic, I cleaned up because all the studios were closed. And I was one of the only vocalists working. So it was very prosperous for me, to say the least, but I could vividly remember, and that was one of those moments where, my art kind of infused with my parenthood, and then sometime I'll take them on photo walks, take them around with other camera enthusiasts that are professionals that are, colleagues of mine, to where it's like, yeah, it's not just me. There are others of us. It's not just your dad doing this thing.
How great, yeah, because sometimes they look at us and go, not that. Them, yes.
Yeah.
This, no.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. You made me think of, Lulu has this passion for music that we share that. And I remember, at first I made the mistake of because I was so eager to share my favorite songs. And it never went over well. But I remember when David Bowie's box set came out in 2016. It was the first sort of retrospective of the first period of his career. And it was, remember CDs?
Yes.
It was back during CDs, so I put the CD into the car stereo. And I want to say it was Kooks, but she heard Kooks, and I just let it play. I didn't preface it or prejudice it with anything. And after the song ended, she said, again.
Wow.
I said, okay.
Yeah.
We must have listened to that song 8 times in a row.
Nice.
And I thought, I do that. I love, if a song moves me, I want to be continuously moved, and I want to explore nuances of the song that I haven't heard the first 1,000 times I've heard the song, and sometimes you hear a bass line, sometimes you'll hear the nail scratching on the guitar.
Yeah. Human.
Yeah, no, like I remember the day of records, you know? Like my first album was The Police and Yara Mandara. And I thought, what an incredible amount of sound for three guys.
Yeah.
But I remember back in the day of records, you remember the sequence of the songs.
Right.
So not only did you remember you had to sit and have
you knew
the patience.
downbeat of the next song. You're like, oh yeah, it's about to come.
Because you know, Don't Stand So Close to Me had a song before it and afterwards. So it was like you knew the whole sequence.
Yes.
And it was, but I hear those songs today now thanks to technology. You can listen to high definition music, and now all of a sudden, it's not compressed at all. So now with the right headphones and the right gear, you're in for a heightened experience of what we heard as kids.
Absolutely. It sounds like you're happy with the place and time you were born, because you reference music a lot, and I love that. You talk about, you know, the rock stuff. You talk about the angst of where you were as it related to, you know, that music. Yeah, I was feeling that way. And it's brought me into that same place. And I felt like I was part of something, right? I can only imagine what your 16-year-old, my 12-year-old is, what are their influences going to be? You know, what's going to be their first thing that they're able to talk about when they have kids? Like, oh, you know, is it like, what, like, it's amazing how music transcends time. And it also puts us in a place, you know, as it relates to how you felt the first time you heard it.
Yep.
And I'm so glad your daughter, you know, had that experience where she's like, play it again. And you're like, as a proud papa, you're like, oh hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
I had a very similar moment. My son, like I said, he's always been singing, and I've always had music around the house, right? But his first concert was a Stevie Wonder.
Wow. Okay.
So
start at the top.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So Global Citizen Music Festival. Yes. So it was Chainsmokers, Pharrell. It was all these, but the headliner was Stevie Wonder.
Wow.
And to have him on my shoulders singing I Just Called to Say I Love You was next level. I had to get it videotaped. It was the moment of my life. It was like, you know, and every kid has that moment. What was the first thing you heard? What was the first concert you heard?
Yeah.
It's always been I don't know if that's just a generational question.
Yeah.
I think that's for our generation. Like, oh, it was the first concert. Like, I think that's a transcendent parent question.
My first concert was at Carnegie Hall with Leonard Bernstein. My father.
I just saw his.
I haven't seen it yet. But my father was a friend of his, of Bernstein's, and so he would. I mean, my memories of my childhood are my father most of the time dragging me against my will to go see classical music. I love all kinds of music, and I inherited my passion for music from my father. But I felt like this was sort of some kind of martial law. And the thing was, my father would fall asleep. So I would be left, you know, kind of this old man fucking snoring with his mouth open, and his friends are looking at him, and then they look at me as if it was my fault. Like, what am I? I'm just a baby. Anyway, so my father's asleep. Bernstein is conducting during a rehearsal, and the music stops, and my father wakes up. I mean, he literally. I mean, it is no worse disrespectful for someone who loves music as much as he does. It's like how offensive to his friends. Not only is he asleep, but he's like exposing, and he smoked a pipe too, so his teeth were not exactly in beautiful expressions of dental wear. So the music stops, and he looks up, and there's Bernstein holding me in diapers. I mean, I was a baby, but I had crawled up on the stage, and that was also Bernstein's way of saying, Henry, wake the fuck up. This is my rehearsal.
That's amazing. No, man, music is just one of those things. I wonder, like, I know that, you know, obviously given, you know, you are an actor, you're you know, your daughter's seen your life in so many different capacities. I mean, does she watch your stuff?
she wouldn't tell me.
Oh, okay, 16-year-old.
Yeah, I think she's seen
16.
stuff on TikTok. Like I was in Bride Wars, and it ended
Yes.
up becoming a meme during the last presidential election about the blue wave.
Right.
So that was amusing to her. And then I think something from Freaky Friday was.
Freaky Friday. That was fun.
Yeah, it was like, I never studied acting, so I sort of have faked my way to here. So I just show up
in a
and
very successful way.
pretend. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Getting there, learning. You never stop learning. I remember the first major film I did was a film for MGM called Super Dave with Albert Brooks's brother, whose real name was Albert Einstein, but he changed his name to Albert Brooks for obvious reasons. But his brother, Dave Einstein, was Super Dave.
Wow.
And so I was playing an English hairdresser. And it wasn't written as a Brit, but I made him British during the audition. And the director was, I can't remember his name, Peter something or other, who was English himself. And I thought, if I can fool a Brit that I might be British, then I've gotten somewhere in my life. So we filmed the wide shot, and I thought we were done because I had no idea how they made movies.
Right.
So we broke for lunch right after the wide shot, and I thought, since I'm done, I'm gonna eat. And I had a fuck-off piece of chocolate cake. It was massive, that I never would have had if I knew that I had coverage, because I didn't know what coverage was.
Right.
So I ate this chocolate cake, and then I said, hey, so great to work with all you guys. And they were like, where are you going? I said, I'm done. They said, no, you're not. You don't want your close-up? And I was like, ha just kidding.
Yeah.
Like,
Make it till you make it.
oh, God, what the hell?
That is great. Got some chocolate cake.
I haven't heard his Bill Cosby's voice in a long time. It was terrible.
Yeah.
My performance was like I'd never had. I'm so grateful for the moments where I was terrible.
Yeah.
Because the director was like, Daniel, you were so good in the audition. What happened?
Yeah.
I thought, because my energy, the thing about sugar and caffeine, I had such a crash, and it was so different from where I had been before.
Yeah.
And I've never made that mistake again. The chocolate cake. I've never eaten chocolate cake since then. It's been a trauma. I can't even, no.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that to be something that impedes.
No,
your
but
work.
you learn. I mean, I think about my worst audition experiences, and it was humiliating. But it's like you learn from that. It's like we grow from that. It's like it's nice to have people say that was great, that take was great, really love that scene. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But in terms of how we grow as artists, we learn more when people say that I didn't like that take.
Right.
Because then you're like, okay, now I have the opportunity
to do it better.
To do it better.
So tell me something. What do you feel has been the most? I guess it's a twofold question. The most rewarding and the most challenging role that you've done, and really shrink it down.
Yeah. Well, the answer to your second question is one that I just did that I can't talk about yet because it's a very hush project.
Got it.
But it was physically taxing because I had to learn how to fence. And that doesn't, the hand-eye coordination, like when it comes to dancing, modern interpretive dancing is what I do. Dancing with a partner, I'm very in tune to my own rhythm.
Right.
It's one of my lifelong quests to learn how to tune myself to other people's rhythms as well.
Yeah.
But I had to learn how to fence, and it was so hard. And there was a scene that we had to film that was very intense and very dramatic. So that was hard. One of my favorite roles was from Angriest Man in Brooklyn, where I got to work with Robin Williams. It was a hero of mine.
Dude, I love Robin Williams.
Yeah, he was.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Man, he Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep talking about that. But I got some. Go. So yes, tell me about that.
It was amazing. I was shooting a whole series of commercials in Ohio. I did the first audition, and then they wanted to see me for the callback, but I was in Ohio filming, so I couldn't do it. And I just thought, well, that's that. And I auditioned as a Uzbek cab driver.
Ooh, I know. Oh,
and
so
it
good
was
at that, too.
it was so then I come back to New York, and they're like, hey, you've got to go for the callback in Brooklyn. They want to see you. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So I tend to turn my phone off, and when I'm going in as someone from another country, if I'm doing an accent, I never want to give them a reason to think that I'm not Uzbek.
Right.
Because then they're listening to the accent instead of watching your performance.
Right.
So I go in character, and I shut my phone down. My agent was trying to get a hold of me, saying, please don't go in character. Robin Williams is going to be there. And so I never got that message. So I get to the production office in Brooklyn. I press the elevator to go up. It goes down. I thought that's weird. And the door opens, and there's Phil Robinson, the director, who's an amazing director, did Field of Dreams. Amazing. A sweet man.
Yeah.
Great director. And then right behind him was Robin Williams. And I thought, oh. And next thing you know, we just sort of go into this 45-minute improvisation. Just from the beginning. Yeah. And it was just sort of unforced. It was seamless, like this dance. We did characters from all over the world. The casting director.
Did anybody record this?
No. I was about to say the casting director was late, and Phil was just sitting there watching. And in fact, we worked our way up to his office. And Phil finally said, after 45 minutes, he said, I think we should probably prefer to watch this, but should probably read the scenes. So I read the scene once with Robin, then they made some adjustments, and I read it again, and they stood up and offered me the job on the spot, and that never happened to me before. And your agents will always say, never accept a job without, I accept the job.
Sure, right.
So
exactly.
of course, Robin Williams is like, would you do this project with us? What am I going to say? I have to talk to my agent first. I didn't say that.
Yeah, right.
So of course
Yeah,
I'm
right.
gonna fucking do this stuff.
Pump his ass.
Yeah, exactly. So I do the project, and I remember, it's like you just come prepared.
Yeah.
That's what you have
Yeah.
to do, and you have to part of being prepared is trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And allowing, if this is the work that we did, if they decide they want something else, just go with it. Don't, resist it. So I'm in the cab filming the second scene with Robin and Mila Kunis.
Yes.
And I believe she's Ukrainian.
Yes, she is Ukrainian.
I was a little self-conscious thinking, fuck, she's gonna, I better do a good job, because, she might just start saying, I don't know what that shit that you're doing is, but it's not Uzbek.
Right, yeah, it's totally different.
I had been working with someone who was an Uzbeki tailor who taught me some curse words. Kutina yertaman. And I added something to it.
Of course you did.
And
Amazing.
and made it into the film because
Nice.
Robin, that first scene when we get in a car accident, and I say to him, Kutina yertaman, and he yells back, yertaman to you. and I put it on social media. I don't know what I'm doing on social media. I'm just posting pictures with music.
Yeah.
That's what I love. But occasionally I put that project, and the next thing I knew, people in Uzbekistan started to share it, and they started writing. I don't know what it means, so I have to translate it. But that was really special. He came to my trailer in between takes, and he was a very different person one-on-one than he was in public. He was always on set. He was always entertaining, just like his mind so fast, But when he knocked on my trailer, he said, "Can I come in?" I said, "Sure." So he started.
The trailer you say.
Yes, exactly. He was asking me about my influences and my heroes, because I don't know that it's not every day you meet someone who I would never put myself on the same level from a talent point of view, but I have many characters from different countries, so I don't think that was a common experience for him to do Italian and then have me be able to keep up with him on the sort of cultural front.
I would have given anything to see that. To see you guys go back and forth.
It was beautiful.
That's what I'm
saying.
It
wasn't competition. It was like we were doing it together, like dancing.
Yes.
So he asked me about my comedic influence. I said Peter Sellers, Peter Ustinov, Peter Cook, the Three Pizzas. And then I said, you, Robin, because I lived in Mexico as a kid. And when I came back to New York, I was feeling like a stranger. I feel like I didn't fit in here. And then I watched Mark and Mindy, where you play this alien.
Oh my gosh.
And I really identified, and I wasn't expecting this, but he was moved to tears.
Wow.
And it was really beautiful. And then I said, who are your heroes? And he started telling me about Jonathan Winters, and I didn't know much.
Yes.
I don't run deep. I obviously know who he is and how funny and sort of unique his humor was.
Yeah.
But it was one of those memorable moments, and it was like I thought. Look,
I'm like.
As performers, we never know where our next job is coming. I think that's for some of the people in our lives. That's a scary thing.
It really is.
How do we survive? How do we survive mentally? How do we survive creatively? How do we make the most of our downtime? Strikes, pandemics, that sort of thing. But I thought, man, if I never work another day in my life, this would be working with Robin Williams. That would be,
awesome.
I feel.
Dude, so the acting, fatherhood, the traveling, all of these creative experiences. I mean, I'm the black version of you. Dude, thanks for being here, man.
My pleasure. My pleasure. We could go on for hours.
I know. But we ain't going that long. But hopefully we can trim this down to a decent size to where you guys are going to be enjoying this. But thank you guys so much for watching once again. I'm just having people over at my place and just chopping it up, talking about life, talking about similarities, talk about our different pursuits, our different paths, but how we got here the same place. And it's always a pleasure and it's always a joy. Thank you to my new friend, Daniel.
Pleasure, man. Thank you for having me
coming over.
I'm taking this couch with me.
Until the next one, guys. Have a wonderful day.